Hello, I'm Corey Rutterkoff, Director of Policy with the Burnaby Board of Trade. And I'm joined by Mike Hillman, who is running in the by-election to join Burnaby City Council. Hi, Mike, how you doing?
I'm well, Corey. Yourself?
Not too bad. Thanks for being here. For us, we're the Chamber of Commerce here in Burnaby, and our role is to support local business and employers and to serve as a catalyst for economic growth, the convener of business and community leaders, and to be a champion and an advocate for the interests of local business. So with an election coming up, that's why we wanted to bring all the candidates. We've invited everyone to do these short videos with us. So I appreciate you being here today to share a little bit about why they're running, their philosophies, and how they're going to approach being on council, so that voters out there know a little bit more about their options for the election a bit better. So let's get started. Mike, to start off, did you want to give us take a few moments maybe to share a bit about yourself, your background and experience, and why you're running for city council this time?
Sure, by all means. I think the first thing to realize is my roots run very deep in Burnaby. I guess it goes back to my grandfather, and at that time they lived out over the Fraser River at the end of Burn Road. I remember my younger days when Uncle Hanson, who lived on Burn Road, and my dad would build gill netters in the barn and roll them down Burn Road on logs to get them down into the slough at the end where the gill netters had all their nets stored. All my schooling was here in Burnaby, from Sussex Avenue all the way through to SFU. And I guess just good local knowledge from sports, playing football at Burnaby South, etc. Work career, I guess, was working when I was young at Vancouver Plywood, cleaning up the mess on the weekends, to wheeling cement, to working for BC Tel in those days in organization behavior and development. And then I went back to Ottawa for a period of time to work with Iona Campanolo as her executive assistant. She was then Minister of State for Fitness and Amateur Sport. And that was an exceptional opportunity to learn more about sport and to be close to the government process on that side. I came back to work in Vancouver with the Vancouver Board of Trade. So my time with the Board of Trade function, I had responsibility for civic affairs and national unity. But I also, after I left the Board of Trade, later became involved with the Northern Development Council, which was everything from 100 Mile House North in British Columbia, and helped them develop a presence here in Vancouver at the World Trade Center to help them promote economic development. Along the way, though, I left the Board of Trade to become executive director of the 1988 Winter Olympic bid. We lost to Calgary. And if you recall, the Rand Iredale study was going on for the downtown stadium. The government asked me then to put this thing together called Transpo 86, which we did. It became Expo 86. So my involvement in securing the bid there was a wonderful experience for me, and it turned out well for the province. We set up Expo 86. I was able to brief Mr. Patterson when he first came in and turn the organization, everything over to him to run. I ended up, though, leaving to go to the SkyTrain project. It was during my time at Expo that I dealt with the Minister of Science, or the Director of Science at Ministry of Transport, and he said, if you're going to run a World's Fair on transportation, you might as well showcase Canadian technology. And there were two programs that the Government of Canada was running, and we got the one that was supposed to go to Quebec to come here. London, Ontario backed away from their obligations on the program, and we got that funding as well. So I became a deputy project manager on the SkyTrain project, responsible for watching the health of the relationship between the system owner, BC Transit, and the system contractor, which I was with. And for those that might remember, Kirk Foley, who graduated from Burnaby South, was the president of the Urban Transportation Development Corporation that developed the SkyTrain technology that we had today. So that project was a tremendous undertaking. I ran in 1984 for the Federal Liberals in the riding of Burnaby, and lost to Swen Robinson, who was an exceptional MP for our community at that time. So that's, I guess, the introduction by way of some background. I've been involved with other events like the Commonwealth Games for Victoria and helping them secure that bid. The World Amateur Golf Team Championships, which we hosted 71 nations here in the Vancouver area. So there's been an involvement, I think, with working together with all levels of government, bringing people together, looking at ideas and working to make sure that we were able to deliver on them. So there's things along the way, like we worked with Darcy Rezak, for example, when he came into the Board of Trade to deal with his membership issues. We worked closely with Rick Antonson, who was, again, another Burnaby South graduate that I played football with, who was tourism director for Tourism Vancouver. So there's things that we did with the Cruise Industry Association, for example, by setting it up, et cetera. So I think that's the sort of background, and maybe we can start from there.
Perfect. I think a good place to start. So I've got a couple of specific priority areas that are top of mind for our members and the business community in general. I wanted to ask a couple questions to dig a little bit on how you'd approach some of those issues. And I had on my list to talk about transportation first. So maybe that's fitting. The city's currently is underway and midway through kind of redoing its transportation plan or updating its transportation plan. And we have 22 recommendations on ways to improve movement of goods and services and people through the city. That includes everything from building more north-south roads to protecting parking hubs in business districts, so you can drive once to the Heights and then walk around and do 10 stops on foot, to improving rider amenities on transit to make them safer, cleaner, brighter, so people use transit more. What would you have a background in transportation? What would you want to see as or think should be the priorities and top actions for the city around improving transportation within our city, and also recognizing our role as the center of the region for people traveling throughout the region and through our city?
Seems everything travels through Burnaby in one form or another in many ways. Look, there's a lot of good ideas, I think, in the proposals that you've brought forward, as well as what TransLink is doing with their 2050 study. And in the end, I think you need to start looking at, as you were saying, how do you create hubs where people can park and then enjoy the neighborhoods in which they want to roam and participate with commerce and small business and have neighborhoods, in essence, that function well. The north-south issue is a tough one. We only have Burnaby Road, Boundary Road, sorry, and North Road. Willington's sort of there. But it's difficult to move from north to south, and anything we can do on that side to assist. I know at one time there was a plan to put a tunnel underneath the Lougheed, so you wouldn't have to stop at Willington and Lougheed. But some of those issues require good capital investment. I think it's important, though, that we as Burnaby fight hard for the funding that comes from the senior levels of government for our projects. I know the gondola going up to SFU is something to me that makes environmental sense, number one, economic sense. We probably should have done it 10 years ago because the inflated cost now would have probably covered the main cost of the program. But it also moves people much more efficiently and faster. So those sorts of things I think are very much part of the way I would look at transit and transportation. Is there is a base of knowledge. There are studies there. I think Burnaby needs to have a good, strong voice that's able to focus on the results we need for our community. And as a community, we need to work together to achieve them.
One of my other questions on transportation was specifically around the gondola project. So you commented on that, and then that's something that the Board of Trade supports. And to your idea, or to your comment, often say that if we build a little bit for the future and we move quickly, but I don't think it's cheaper if you wait. So no, I appreciate your comment on that. Yeah. Looking at one of the biggest roles for city government is planning and development and zoning and how a city develops. Burnaby continues to undergo major development as we mature, and last year, despite a pandemic, had near record-breaking building permits again. Do you have any thoughts on how you've seen the city grow and develop around the 4-quadrant strategy thus far, and thoughts on how we ought to be moving forward with growth and how we focus our growth and increase in population for the next 10 or 15 years?
Well, I remember looking back, not being able to see one high rise as you look from Forest Lawn up towards the Kingsway area. And it's amazing to see how the skyline has changed, and it will continue to change. When we did the initial work on SkyTrain, we did a study that looked at the issue of construction and how that would change. There was no sense that construction would increase, but it would simply focus around stations as they do in Toronto on Yonge Street. So we will continue to have some development in that area. I hope that the plans I'm seeing for Metrotown, for example, as well as what you see in Brentwood, are developing neighborhoods within their complexes. So they are looking to say, as you were saying, can you have central parking? Can you have areas where people walk and can enjoy and have all sorts of other amenities available to them? I think the other thing that we did, and as your audience may know, as I was one of the campaign managers for Mike Hurley in his campaign to become mayor. And one of the things we talked about there was crawl spaces. And there's things that the city can do that needs to get caught up on, but crawl spaces is one of them. Laneway housing is another. And how do we do that in a progressive way as far as zoning and allowing things to gently come in, but ensure that we create neighborhoods that people can enjoy. There's always issues with all those things, which we need to work through, but I think that the housing and homelessness study that the city has put a lot of effort into, which is a result of Mike Hurley's study on his task force on housing, there's changes that are going to be necessary to bylaws and to community plans. And I think we need to be able to move quickly to consider some of those things, go through the details, but get them passed and get them implemented so that we can start moving quickly to get things done. I think sometimes too long, studies happen, they get dust and they sit on the shelf and they get forgotten about. And I think it's time that we in Burnaby move forward quickly to make some more positive change in our communities.
I'm going to pick up on you said kind of talking about development and communities and kind of gently growing those. So I'm going to pick up on whether that means kind of you're using that term in the way that I use it, in the sense that one of our housing principles that we brought to the mayor's housing task force was the idea around do we find a way, or can we find a way of adding more gentle density throughout the city? So looking at we have the cores where that's the main growth, the towers are around our four quadrants, but is there a way of getting that missing housing form, the row homes, the townhomes, which we don't have a great inventory of those in Burnaby? And is that a way of doing those along maybe in corridors or areas which maybe aren't in those four quadrants, but could withstand a little bit more density than single family? Is that what you're talking, or what are your thoughts on
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. And just by way of example, 10 years ago, we built a new home here on Marine Drive. In it, Donna and I have the in-law suite on the main floor. My daughter, her husband, and my two granddaughters live in the same building. They have their own kitchen and they have their space. But it's a multi-generational family. We plan on staying in place for as long as we can. And it's an opportunity for the kids to enjoy and for the family to have that togetherness. And I guess one of the side benefits is anything ever goes wrong with my TV, all I have to do is yell and one of the granddaughters will come over and fix it up for me. But those sorts of, I think, opportunities for families to look at options. And oftentimes you have people staying in place and it's a bigger place than they really need. And if they were to have a laneway option that's available to them that fits into the community, then maybe they can have their family living in the main house with the young families, the young kids with them. So there's, I think, gentle ways of being able to do it. I don't think you wander in and say that everybody's allowed to do everything at once. I think we need to take some demonstration projects so communities can have a look at it and start the process. There's not a magic wand that you can wave and say it's all done overnight. There is a process to go through, but gentle densification, I think, is a good way to go.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm gonna raise a bit of a pet peeve of mine and many of our members, and we're looking at property tax, but not in the way that you might think for a municipal election, is because one of the biggest challenges that Burnaby businesses face is the impact of highest and best use, where BC assessment is valuing a property based on the redevelopment potential. So the bakery on the corner of two main thoroughfares, it's just a bakery, but because it could be a tower, it's valued at that, and then it's taxed at that. So That's a provincial issue that we've been raising, and we've been working with city staff and council on advocating for what the city can do to fix that as well. What are your do you have any thoughts on that issue, and would you be an advocate or an ally for making sure that the taxation burden on small business in Burnaby is something that's sustainable and that we can fix problems like this as they arise?
Most definitely is the answer to that. I was with somebody this morning who's got a development in the process with the city. Their assessment, because of the potential of land, is costing an extra $100,000 a year. And you look at that and you say, we talk about affordability on one side, but yet we turn around and add costs on top of those that want to develop or will have the opportunity to grow. And all that does is mean that the person who's buying the house or operating their business simply has to pay more when there is no realized benefit yet. So I fully support the concept that yes, lands do have potential to change their density and to grow, but the existing businesses that are there shouldn't have to incur the cost when they haven't realized that opportunity yet. Don't sell, if you sell a product, you don't get the money until somebody buys it. So, I think just makes common sense, practical sense to say that, yes, if the property is going to be developed and when it is developed, and maybe there's a graduated process as you move forward with developments, but you shouldn't be paying the full value, assessed value of something based on simply its potential.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm gonna pick up on something that wasn't one of the questions I had thought of, but one of the comments that you had flagged there around the city being able to maybe move quicker and not letting plans gather on the shelf and get dust. One of the things that, and I'm loath to use the term silver lining because it's been a challenging year, but one of the spin-off benefits of the pandemic is we've seen a lot of governments at all levels move very quickly on things. Programs that would have taken 3 years to get developed are done in 3 weeks. And we've been seeing a lot of flexibility and governments being willing to do things that were they never would entertain in the past. We've been calling that the orientation to yes, and it's something that we would love to see business or governments hold on to even now as we recover and when we put the pandemic behind us. Do you have any thoughts philosophically on has this uncovered a way that government can maybe be a bit more responsive, and do we have to accept that everything plans take years to develop and implementation take years to implement, or are the lessons to learn that maybe government can move a bit faster and maybe at the speed of business going forward?
Oh, I think most definitely. There's situations that arise. There's issues around maybe spot density issues that need to be looked at, and I think that we need a government who's able to respond quickly. The world around us is changing ever so quickly, and we fall by our institutions of government ever so far behind. And we've seen that with regards to pandemics. We've seen it with regards to transportation. There's a number of things that fit that bill of taking too long to get the job done. And I was with somebody earlier today that was talking about the timeline on just getting a project approved. You look at that and it's the cost of money, it's the cost of time, it's the cost of everything else that goes into it that just makes life more and more affordable for us all. And it delays things, and it adds to the frustration that everybody goes through and saying, brilliant idea, we can do this, we can have sidewalk cafes, we can, right? Little things and sometimes big things that can happen and should happen quickly. I go back and I got to be careful in going back, but the government went to cabinet on a Thursday to talk about the BC Place Stadium and creating a place called BC Place and putting Transpo, which became Expo 86 with it. Came out of that, that was Tuesday. Grace McCarthy said the Premier only wants a small gathering on Tuesday, and she wanted 400 people. And we designed and created the concept of BC Place over the weekend and had 400 people there for the announcement. Things are different these days. There is more process, and it's proper that there is, but there's also the ability to take ideas and make them happen. And if they're good ideas that benefit the community and benefit the business operators and others, then they're worthwhile doing, then get them done.
Perfect. And with that, I think we're bumping up against the clock, so we want to keep these nice and consumable for all of our audience out there. So
Yep.
Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time to do the video and share your thoughts and perspectives with us. So thank you for that.
Okay, it's a pleasure. And just a reminder to everybody, it's Mike Hillman. I need your vote on June 26th, and I will work hard to earn your respect in delivering on my services to City Council.